When a crime happens, watch where people run. Not metaphorically, literally. Because in case after case after case in true crime history, the moment investigators close in, guilty people move. They travel. They distance themselves physically from the evidence. They put borders and oceans between themselves and the truth. So today, I need to ask you one very direct question. Why did Tommaso Cioni travel to Italy, the country of his birth, in the period surrounding one of the most high-profile missing persons investigations in American history? What was in his luggage? What did he take with him? And what, if anything, did he leave behind? Because our community has been asking these questions loudly and persistently. And today, we are going to dig into every single one of them. This is another episode of the Nancy Guthrie series, and this is the episode that connects every dot. Let me bring everyone up to speed before we go deeper. Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, disappeared from her Tucson, Arizona home on the night of January 31st going into February 1st, 2026. Blood found at the scene. Her home classified as a crime scene immediately. The FBI involved within days. A $50,000 reward offered. Ransom notes sent to media outlets demanding Bitcoin payments. In episode 1, we examined Tommaso Cioni's suspicious behavior and his position as the last known person to see Nancy alive. In recent episode, we followed the money, the $1 million property, the power of attorney signed 8 months before Nancy vanished, and the car that police dismantled piece by piece and have still not returned to the family. Today's, in episode 12, we are going even further. Because one of the most engaged members of this community dropped a comment on our last video that stopped me completely in my tracks. They raised 7 specific questions that this investigation has never publicly answered. 7 questions about money, about travel, about insurance, about debt, about foreclosure, about a woman being seen as a burden by the very people who were supposed to love and protect her. Today, we address every single one. Let me lay out the full financial picture of this case, the way investigators see it.
The way investigators see it. Tommaso Cioni is a 6th grade science teacher earning between $65,000 and $73,000 per year. Annie Guthrie is a poet and writer. Together, their combined household income is modest by any measure. And yet, public records show a $1 million property connected to this family, a lifestyle that does not easily reconcile with their known income sources. Now add the following questions that our community has raised, questions that to this day have received no satisfactory public answer. Was there an insurance policy taken out on Nancy Guthrie before her abduction? If so, who are the beneficiaries? Were Tommaso and Annie denied financial assistance by Nancy prior to her disappearance? Did Nancy say no to a request for money, and did that refusal create a dangerous level of resentment? Were credit cards maxed out? Was debt spiraling beyond control? Was the family home at genuine risk of foreclosure? And perhaps most painfully, was Nancy Guthrie, at 84 years old, dependent on daily medication, beginning to be seen not as a beloved mother and grandmother, but as a financial burden by those closest to her? These are not comfortable questions, but they are the questions that every serious investigator in a case like this is asking, and they deserve to be asked publicly. Now, here is the detail that our community flagged that I cannot stop thinking about: the Italy trip. Tommaso Cioni was born in Italy. He has deep personal and cultural ties to the country. Traveling to Italy is not in itself suspicious for a man of Italian descent, but the timing. In the middle of one of the most watched missing persons investigations in American history, with the FBI searching his home, his car dismantled by forensic investigators, his name circulating globally. As a person of intense public interest, Tommaso Cioni traveled to Italy. Our community member asked the question that I believe every investigator should be asking out loud. What was in his luggage? Think about what could theoretically be transported internationally that investigators might want to know about. Documents, financial records, items connected to the crime. Evidence that once it leaves American soil becomes exponentially harder to recover or prosecute. Now, I want to be completely fair here. Investigators have the ability to request international cooperation through Interpol and through bilateral agreements between the United States and Italy. Evidence does not simply disappear because it crosses a border. But the optics of that trip, the timing, the destination, these are things that our community is right to question loudly and persistently. Because innocent people do not flee to another country when their mother-in-law goes missing. Innocent people stay. They cooperate. They make themselves available. They sit across from investigators as many times as necessary and answer every single question until their loved one is found. Let me now connect every thread of this episode into a single behavioral framework. What we are potentially looking at in this case, if the community source details are accurate, is a textbook example of what criminal psychologists call accumulated motive syndrome. This is not a single reason to commit a crime. This is a pressure cooker of reasons that builds over months and years until it reaches a breaking point. Financial desperation, denied requests for money, maxed credit cards, foreclosure risk, an elderly dependent seen as a burden, a potential insurance payout waiting on the other side of a tragedy. Each individual pressure point can be managed, but when all of them converge simultaneously on the same household, on the same two people, the psychological pressure becomes immense. And then add one more element that our community member identified so perfectly. The psychopath does not crack under that pressure the way a normal person does. They do not break down. They do not confess. They do not show remorse. They smile at dinner. They drop their mother-in-law home safely. They wait 2 minutes for the garage door to close. And then they drive away. The most dangerous criminals in history were not the ones who looked dangerous. They were the ones who looked completely normal.
Transparent public answers. And I believe that the Italy trip, whatever the explanation, was a mistake. Because it told the world exactly what kind of person we are dealing with. Someone who runs. Nancy Guthrie does not have the luxury of running anywhere. She is 84 years old. She needs her medication every single day. She is somewhere out there right now. And every day without answers is a day that brings the worst possible outcome closer. This channel will not stop. This community will not stop. And the truth will not stay hidden forever. Justice for Nancy Guthrie. But before I go, I need to tell you about Dominic Evans, Tommaso Cioni's bandmate, his close personal friend, a man deeply embedded in his inner circle. A man with a criminal record that includes felony charges of burglary, robbery, theft, and embezzlement. Investigators have been asking very specific questions about this man and his potential connection to the night Nancy Guthrie vanished. In another episode, we go all the way into that criminal inner circle. We expose every detail of Dominic Evans' record, examine his connection to Tommaso, and we ask the question that nobody has answered yet. Was Tommaso Cioni acting alone? Subscribe. Bell notification on. Another episode is coming. And it is going to be the most explosive episode yet.